Well, what is going on YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Today on the table in front of us is not a new knife, although it is new to me. It's not a new knife by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not a very popular knife. And I find myself wondering why. Now, there are a couple of reasons that make sense to me why it isn't, but then there are some I just don't get the discontent. Now, the first thing you're going to notice about this, first off, this is the ZT-0223. This came out in 2019, and I know because I was at Blade Show when they dropped this knife, and the whole world went, no. And I don't get it now that I've got one in my hands. Now, you are going to notice that this one is not stock. Someone, that was me, actually dyed the sort of brown G10 scales they put on this thing a really nice burgundy. I really like that. I think it makes the whole knife look better. And that is such an easy fix. You're going to hear complaints about the holes in the blade, and you're right, I don't get that at all. Finally, you're going to hear complaints about the price. These things are $300. Well, so's the ZT-0308, which is a much bigger knife, I get that. But that's kind of their new price point, about $300. And like it or not, that's what they're doing. Now, I didn't pay that much for this. I got this in a trade. But that means that they're out there on the secondary market. There may not be a lot of them, but they are out there. And I will tell you the following. If you're interested in a knife that is not only a great carry, but a great cutter, that is exceptionally well made and a good steel, and you can find one at a price that doesn't upset you, the ZT-0223 is probably a good knife for you. And you can change the color of that light brown scale to anything you want, as long as it's darker than the light brown. I went with red because I think it looks cool, but you could do black or green. You could do all sorts of things. Dyeing G10 is easy. Takes next to no effort. And you can personalize a knife quickly that way, as I've done. Let's talk about the good things here. And there are more good things than bad things. First, this knife is ridiculously comfortable in hand. It is. It is a well-shaped and well-thought-out handle. Pocket clip is not deep carry, but it's not offensive either. The G10 sort of faux wraparound, because as you can see there's a line right here, it doesn't actually connect back here. The sort of faux wraparound G10 offers just enough sort of cushioning and grip. It is very comfortable. There is good jimping on the blade right here. The overall shape of this knife lends itself to cutting and use. And I know I've had it for a while now, and I've done all of my basic cutting tasks with it. The CPM 20 CV blade is slicey and well done. Yeah, it's got some weird holes in a place where people said, you've compromised the strength of the blade. Maybe, but if you're prying with your knife hard enough for these, which by the way go through after the plunge, so they're at the thickest part of the blade, if you're prying with your knife hard enough that these holes have compromised the blade, you are using your knife in the wrong way in the first place. I know, I'm going to hear about that. I'm not supposed to have strong opinions apparently, but I do. Knives are not pry bars, and if you're using your knife as a pry bar, get a pry bar. Ta-da! However, having carried this thing for a little over a week now, and used it, as I said, for all my basic cutting tasks, I have fallen in love with the knife itself. It's on bearings. It is all titanium. It has a steel lock bar insert on the frame lock. As I said, the clip is not deep carry, but again, it's not offensive either, and it is really, really out of the way. So there's no hot spot. The blade is nice and long and very slicey, and the action on this thing is some of the best I've seen from ZT in a really long time. Now, I read some of the original reviews, watched and then read some other reviews, and they said, you can't Spidey flick it. Yes, you can. It takes a little thought. Because of the way this swell is right here, about right behind this choil, you can't get your finger anywhere along there, but if you hold it like this, you can Spidey flick it just fine. It has one back spacer, which is a barrel spacer, which is anodized out sort of a bronze, but it's very dark. I love this thing. Other than that, it's got, it's held together right here and then through the pivot. So it's held together in two places. These screws here only hold in the G10, which is a funky choice. There's a lot of screws for some reason. It doesn't need 3 on each side, but I think a lot of this knife was the designer's aesthetic, and who are we to argue? I mean, you don't have to like it, but who are we to argue with it? I don't know. I was there, like I said, when this knife dropped, and I heard the groan, and I watched the sales not be great. But it's a good knife. It really is. There are a lot of knives. Cost a lot of prices. Now, at $300, yeah, I get it. That's a lot of money for a knife. But Riots are going for upwards towards $400 now. Wies are going for regularly at $300 and above. ZT has all the same materials, all the same fit, finish, and features as those knives, and it's coming in at $300 even. It's a little much. Oddly enough, I think it's a marketing problem. If they'd have put this knife out at $290, I think people would not have complained. But something about breaking that magic 300 mark and makes people a little wibbly. This is the kind of knife, and I've had, at this point, probably 1,000 pocket knives. I have hundreds still. That if you wanted a knife to last you for a long time, this would be it. And you can personalize it, as I did. So now that I've got my little rant, we're not so little rant, we're 6 minutes in, out of the way. Let's take a look at what you get for your $300, or in my case, not $300. You get 3 1/4 inches of cutting on, well, since it's since this handle comes farther forward than the edge of the blade, you get 3 3/3 inches of cutting of CPM 20 CV, and that is a really nice size blade. The grip area from, where do you hold it? You come in just behind that swell, is just a little of 4 1/4 inches. The overall knife is 8.5 inches long. 3 1/4 inch blade on an 8.5 inch knife is pretty good. That's a lot of cutting surface. This is a well done knife. It's a beautiful clip point. A little bit of flat right here. Nice flat along here with plenty of belly up here at the front for cutting. The lock bar is shadow boxed a little bit by, like this on this side, by this weird scale design. But it works really, really well. And I'm Spidey flicking it, but the flipper is never fail. I don't know if I can shake it out. Let's try it. Oh, just a little bit. So we're going to call the detent, out of a possible 10, 10 being so hard you can't flip the knife, and 1 meaning it falls out when you do that. I'm going to say that that's a 6.5 or 7, because, let me see if I can fail it. Nope, you can't. You just can't fail it on the flip, which is what you want from a good detent. I'm sure Lefty's out there somewhere with his own opinions on that, but that's mine, and I'm sticking to it. Fit and finish on my used, it was new in box, I guess, basically, but still, somebody had this before me, was perfect. It's lean in the pocket, coming in at under a 1/2 inch. You can't really see that, but it's just under a 1/2 inch. And the closed profile is very good. What are we looking at? Yeah, 1.25 inches, coming up on 1.5 inches with the flipper. Now the flipper is a little pokey, so when it's in the pocket, you're not going to want to have this resting up against your phone. It's not that it's sharp, it's just that it's not particularly knocked down. I like this shape right here at the tip, front of the knife right there. I think it suits the overall shape of the knife and looks really good. Could I have gone with a fancier clip? Well, yeah. For this kind of money, probably. But hey, ZT's going to do what ZT's going to do. I do like the fact that, much like their other more expensive knives, the pivot is actually buried down into the titanium on this side, with a very simple pivot with a T8 on this side, which means you don't have to worry about it turning on you when you're trying to loosen it or tighten it, which is really nice. The tail end through the barrel spacer looks to be screws on both sides, which means you need to apply pressure on both sides to get it open. But again, you don't have to get this off if you wanted to dye it. You can just take this off, which I think is a very cool feature. By the way, the closed length on this, because of this weird shape, is a full, what, 5 inches? Yeah. I think it's a neat knife. Let's do some size comparisons against stuff you may have seen before. Here it is against the Rat Model 1. If we line the Rat up there, put the 223 there, you'll see that they are virtually the same length and about the same size. This is a better carry. This is more comfortable in hand. I'm not really a Rat fan, but it's a very well-known knife. Let's do it up against the Rat Model 2 so you can see how much bigger the 223 is. What else do we have on the table that's fun? Well, here it is against the 940, or in this case, the 943. As you can see, the ZT-0223 is bigger. It's just a nice big knife without being a monster. It's well done. And finally, let's put it up against the Delica, because many of you have held a Delica. As you can see, it is a good-sized knife without being enormous. I like when a knife surprises me, when I'm determined not to like something, and then I finally get one in hand, determined enough that I've avoided them up to now, and then I get one in hand and think, well, looks like I was wrong. And that's fun, because that means that, I'm still learning. There's always something new to discover. Again, do I wish this knife was even just $20 less expensive new? I do. That $300 mark it's a little hard to go over just kind of for a ZT, I guess, but they made a good knife here that deserved better than the attention it got originally, I'll tell you. Let's weigh it, because I'm curious. Doesn't feel that heavy, but it's very well balanced, and that helps. So even a heavy knife that's well balanced can come off as considerably lighter. Now the action is really good. Yeah, almost 5 ounces for an 8.5-inch knife. There is no milling on the inside of these tie scales, but they are notched out for this. So maybe they assumed the milling was on the inside. But if you get back here to this end, there's no milling back here. And as you can see, these are reasonably thick chunks of titanium. This is one of those knives, it just missed. Has all the right features, has all the right materials. They just did some weird stuff that did not appeal to the buying market initially, and I think it really did the knife a disservice. If they'd have left these holes out, I think that would have gone a long way towards easing everyone's thoughts about it. And it does work a little too hard to be tactical looking, I guess. But, God, this is a good knife. Just a joy to carry and a joy to use. And that's where we're going to wrap it up. Sometimes things deserve a second look. The ZT-0223, I don't know why I stuttered on that, the 223 here. If you looked at one in the past and thought, well, I don't like the color, or maybe it's not a good knife, or all the reviews I saw were kind of negative about it. Well, here's one that isn't. I mean, yeah, there are some kind of frowny spots, but for the most part, what I'm telling you is that this is an excellent knife. And if you thought about getting one, and you can either afford to buy one outright, or you find one on the secondary market at a price that doesn't offend you, grab one. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.